As we have heard over the past couple of days, job creation will be something President-elect Trump puts at the top of the priority list for his new administration. Noteworthy that the current unemployment rate sits at 4.9%, but President-elect Trump has said that's not good enough. Joining us to tell us why and how the President-elect is planning to boost jobs in the economy is Mr. Trump's senior economic advisor and CEO of the Federal Savings Bank, Steve Calk. Steve, nice to see you, sir.
Great to be with you, Leland.
All right, so let's start with this. We've heard a lot of different ideas. We've heard infrastructure, we've heard big jobs programs, infrastructure driven by private investment. What is it? What's the goal here, and what's priority one when it comes to the economy?
Okay, I think most importantly what we want to do is make sure that we're focusing on the demands that the people have made and the policies and plans that Mr. Trump has articulated so well throughout this entire campaign. Tax, trade, regulation, deregulation, and energy. Those drivers, those large macro policy changes that can drive the job growth, increase GDP from the real numbers, which I think, as we all know, are really much closer to 9.5%, with 90 million plus people unemployed. We need to set the benchmarks now on what they really are, start using real numbers so that we can move, measure, monitor, and control the growth of those job numbers and job growth as we proceed over the next 6, 12, 24 months.
Okay, so we're talking about essentially sort of redoing how we calculate the unemployment numbers to take into account so many people have left the workforce because they can't find work or simply become disgruntled with that idea. But going back to this, what of those drivers that you laid out is the top priority? Is it this $1 trillion infrastructure project? Is it reworking trade deals that were such a cornerstone of President-elect Trump's beginning campaign speeches?
Well,
is it energy policy? What is it?
Let me see if I can help you out here. So what have we observed over the last week? You know, people laughed at me back in April when I started to talk about how, you know, the plan that we wrote specifically focusing on primarily reducing corporate tax rates from 35% to 15%. And we heard all of this hullabaloo about how the markets were going to absolutely crash and how no one was going to buy into this concept. What have we seen in fact this week? Since the election, we've seen a record Dow, we've seen true direction, and what people have found most important, and what I have discovered in talking to hundreds and hundreds of CEOs across this country, as I do every single month, is that finally they are willing to get off of their hands. They see some real certainty in leadership, and they're ready to make the investments, expand the business, do the merger, move forward with the acquisition, and most importantly, start to grow their businesses again. It's the uncertainty that has frozen us in the past 8 years. It's that very issue, that lack of clear-eyed leadership, that has got us stuck in a rut. So to answer your question back, number one, let's address the tax issue. We're going to repeal, of course, as we talked about, Obamacare, and do away with some of the ridiculous mandates, including the subsidies, the individual mandate where you are required to have this, and most importantly, the employer mandate. And I think it's that employer mandate that drove up costs, reduced competition, that really frustrated small and medium-sized businesses. This entire package of tax, trade, regulation, and energy is really about reigniting the entrepreneurial flame. Please.
Mr. Calk, you know, I'm fascinated by the issue you brought up in terms of what the market did in the days and hours after Mr. Trump was elected, in the sense that we saw Dow futures plummet down 800, and by 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:30, when opening bell rang, all of a sudden they were even, and then the Dow took off. What I'm interested, though, is how do you translate what is sort of a speculative investment into infrastructure stocks, some energy stocks, some transportation stocks, those kinds of things that people think that President Trump is going to help those sectors, into actually helping those sectors?
So let me ask you a very simple question in response to your question. Do you look into the eyes of Mr. Trump or anyone that's made up this economic team and think that that was a joke? Think that we weren't serious about wanting to create jobs and grow this economy? And then common sense leads any CEO, any senior shareholder, any investor to look at how the dollars work. And when you talk about putting 20% back in the coffers of a company to grow, to add jobs, to continue to expand, you're going to get the type of receptivity that the markets have reflected this week. And look for that to continue as the promises are executed upon. And remember, we're not talking about a day, a week, a month. We're talking about moving and digging out of a hole, a cataclysmic hole, with all kinds of walls in front of it that's been created over the last 8 years. But this team and this leadership group and Mr. Trump can do this.
Well, The market seems to be betting on you guys with real dollars now, as we are at a record high for the Dow. Mr. Kalk, appreciate it. Come back and talk to us as these plans begin to be implemented.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.